SCP-084. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-084 is currently under a full non-interaction order until the full extent of the emission waves has been evaluated. For detailed documentation on general FNI orders, see Document XRG-1182. For detailed documentation on FNI orders in relation to SCP-084, see Document XRG-1208-A. A continuous surveillance watch must be maintained around the active area of SCP-084 with the primary objective of civilian misdirection and external surveillance. No major roads, trails, or other travel routes nearby. Any civilians encountered approaching SCP-084 are to be deemed suspect and detained for evaluation. Under no circumstances are any Foundation or civilian personnel allowed to be in the active area of SCP-084 except with express vocal and written permission of no fewer than 2 members of O5 Command. Sentries are to maintain their posted positions with line-of-sight contact checks on follow sentries. In conjunction with compass and landmark checkings, all reference points should be well outside the active area of SCP-084. Should any sentry fail to report in via vocal roll call, full recall orders will be issued to all sentries and commitment will be reevaluated by special response teams. In the event of active area fluctuation, full recall orders would be assumed by all active sentries, followed by appropriate action. No form of radio, GPS, television, cell phone, video camera, still picture camera, or any other recording or electronic media devices are permitted within 100 meters of active area around SCP-084. Civilians found with such devices when the area are to have said devices confiscated and destroyed immediately. Any recordings collected, data expunged. Description: SCP-084 appears to be a large radio tower positioned in the center of a large open field with 2 small outbuildings. Direct observation and sample collection from SCP-084 is impossible due to the effect that the emitted around from SCP-084. SCP-084 appears to emit a form of wave or radiation that has a detrimental effect on local space-time/reality. The most pronounced aspect of this is the alteration of local space within the active area of SCP. This area forms a rough dome shape of 200 meters in diameter. SCP-084 appears inside this area at random points, appearing to jump at random times. Sometimes even appears in multiple locations at once inside the active area. Currently, the space appears to be unlimited, with SCP-084 at the quote-unquote center. SCP-084 is impossible to reach due to the emitted effect. Attempts to approach SCP-084 within the active area have returned the observation that SCP-084 retains its relative position on the horizon. Even after 3 months and 12 days of dedicated direct travel both by vehicle and on foot, termination tests have proved impossible. As no means of destruction are capable of physically reaching SCP-084, even when entered from outside the active area, local space will also distort periodically. This will cause relative distances to randomly extend or contract in a flicker, causing buildings or objects to suddenly jump thousands of meters away or rush up to other points, sometimes even causing overlap. Overlaps have marked detrimental effect on living tissue. The town of Redacted is assumed to have been situated in or around the original manifestation of the active area. The town is no longer observable from the outside of the active area, appears only once inside the active area. Redacted has maintained the same population, 343 humans, and duration of the encapsulment. Births appear to be impossible along the normal aging pattern. Suicide or homicide appears to be circumvented by the area of effect, with dead subjects flickering, appearing alive and unharmed several seconds after death. Also reports of events of rewinding, causing things like mortal wounds, invisible freeze, and close. Subjects appear to exhibit many events of inconsistent space-time, as do most structures. Detailed observations, see log 084-A4. Electronic devices and recording equipment do not function properly in or around the area. Subjects report bizarre and unsettling transmissions from video and audio recordings and playback devices. This acts to totally isolate Redacted from the outside world, precluding any need of the Foundation in enacted containment. It also appears impossible to leave the area after a random period of time. One subject from Redacted found on the grass plain, see log 084-A4, reported he had been traveling for 6 years. He was found approximately 400 meters from Redacted city limits. And we will read the log. Log 084-A4. Record of observed anomalous events relating to SCP-084. Detailed observations made of the grass plain making up the majority of the active area. The plain appears to be made out of one 10-meter by 10-meter section of grass, heated endlessly to make up the plain. Sections appear to be randomly rotated as they are formed, causing sections of grass and small ground variation to line up incorrectly. Few non-human organisms appear to exist within the active area. Those outside the active area avoid it, and appear to vanish shortly after entering. Animals observed inside the active area appear normal, but behave strangely. Shuddering movements, sudden shivering, repetitive loops, and other abnormal actions appear to indicate these may not be actual animals. Most animals appear to flicker and vanish after 3 to 4 hours. Vocal communication is difficult within the active area. Vocal communication appears normal within 5 meters of the speaking subject. Reports the slightly muffled quality repeated commonly outside of the 5 meters. The subject appears to be speaking from a great distance with a great deal of echoing. Reports of speech being heard several seconds after the subject has stopped talking and speech occurs with no subject speaking are also not uncommon. Detailed observation of the radio tower is impossible due to the inability to physically touch it, the effect of the broadcast, and most observational equipment. Basic telescope or binoculars show the tower to be hazy and statically fogged, while more advanced equipment is subjected to the anomalous broadcast. Weather patterns as well as basic day and night appear to be totally random. Overhead sky will randomly cycle between day, night, and clear and other weather patterns. Relative sun and cloud position appear random as well, with frequent flickering and blurring between different states. Physical alteration or damage to anything within the active area is impossible. Actions such as digging, demolition, and new constructions will suddenly blur and be reset to the previous unaltered state at random points. Subjects inside a reset structure, such as a hole, will become instantly trapped in. Humans in the active area around SCP-084 exhibit some of the more striking and easily observed reality distortion effects. These include sudden blurring in limbs or head, appearing to suddenly gyrate at violently high speed for several seconds before ending. Subjects experience no pain, often unaware of this phenomenon. Looping, typically manifested as a repeating of 8 to 20 seconds at a time. Subjects go through an action, example exiting a doorway, picking up an article of clothing, then suddenly freeze and flicker, then return to the original starting position of the loop and repeat the action. Even if this involves a sudden teleportation at a significant distance, rarely subjects appear to become caught in permanent loop. Observation and interrogation of subjects in Redacted show that basic human needs such as food, water, and sleep are no longer required after prolonged exposure to the area. Some subjects report not having eaten or drank for, they believe, 5 years. One elderly subject also reports having made 2,110 unsuccessful suicide attempts. Subjects will sometimes be able to pass through solid matter without incident. These periods appear to last for random periods of time and begin to end without warning. Subjects inside solid matter when the period ends will become trapped or fuse until the period resumes. One subject reports being trapped below the waist in a wall for 2 years. Extreme psychological distress is observed after long-term exposure. The transmission data expunge barrier, which is composed of long-term exposure, subjects in advanced perception, states typically reset after several months. Recorded transmissions show a slight data expunged cycles overall. Attempting to catalog and record those broadcasts has therefore been remanded in autonomous systems, include any additional loss of Foundation personnel.